How do you change the work conditions when you don't have the money to change the work conditions?
You've got to find the improvements, because it all starts, in my opinion, from what orders you accept in the business. If you're accepting stuff that you can't do or is unreasonable to ask of your employees, it's your fault. And so we started with that, and that was one of the biggest changes.
What have you done consistently in the last 10 years that's worked?
It's just consistently running the experiment to see what didn't work. Getting comfortable with failure has been one of the biggest changes for me, and not feeling like a failure. It's the consistency of the morning meeting builds your company's tribe, your culture. There's no secret sauce, but I did learn years ago that, especially when it comes to their recovery, I can't want it more than they do. But what I can do is create a nice, safe environment with a given culture that you can be in 40 hours a week. And so by being a community of givers, we're figuring out how to not just treat people as pegs that go in holes. This is going to be one of those weird sentences. I don't remember the last time an employee put a car in a ditch.
Good day and welcome everyone to the ANZ Learning Club. We are going over Chapter 4, Consistency in Improvement Starts with I. And today's guest is Sean Miller. Sean and his family operate a business called Martin Partitions, located in Lancaster, Ohio. They make custom-built packaging partitions. Sean is going to share with us his fascinating story of how they turned their business around implementing 2-second lean, and how consistency played a vital role in their transformation. So without further ado, welcome, Sean. The floor is yours.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here. It's been a fun ride. Just talking to Edwin, and I realized I've been on this journey for 10 years, which is a long time, because it started with a fateful weekend in September in 2015. I happened to be out in Seattle with our newborn. He was, I think, about a year old at the time, and visiting friends and family out in Seattle for the weekend. And a buddy called me on Saturday and said, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Nothing. I'm not home. What are you doing?" And he said, "Do you want to come to Boeing with me in Renton?" And I said, "Yes, I'd love to see how a plane is made." So my son and I got to see a plane, and we talked to his dad, who had been with Boeing for many years. And he was telling us the story how they used lean principles that they learned from the Japanese to go from building 3 planes a month to 31 planes a month. And he gave me a copy of the typical lean books, and I read them and went, "Yep, not for me. As much as I'd like to be able to do those things, I have no idea what any of this means. And I've got like 40 people. I got too many fires to put out." So I ignored it for a while. And somewhere along the line, I found Paul Akers at 2-second lean. And I went, "I got this. I can do this." And then I sent him an email because I couldn't figure it out. And that was about 9 months later. And I was surprised that he got back to me and we figured it out. And since that time, and even in the email, I was rereading it last night, it said, "Kaizen yourself." And I realized that it wasn't about what I did with other people. It wasn't about getting in other people's way. And it took me another 4 years to figure out how much I was getting in everybody else's way. But it's been a very fun journey to bring our family's company that they bought in 2007 to where it is now, almost 20 years later. It's completely different. It's in a different facility. And as Edwin will help me show in some of the videos, the equipment is much safer, but produces better products and just makes people's lives better. Because in 2017, the year after emailing Paul, we had 360 people through our building that got tax documents. So in the States, we call them W-2s. That doesn't include the temp service that we were hiring through. Those people never made that. And so we had 360 people through our building in 2017. Last year, we sent out 36 W-2s, only 36. So we've stemmed the turnover, and nothing has changed in the way we're hiring people, other than the fact we don't use a temp service. We still choose to hire people that need second chances, that don't have their life together, as we would like to think some of us do. We choose to hire people out of correctional facilities and rehabs and things like that, which has given us a great way to help people. And now with 2-second lean, we're taking the mission of the company that much further. And it's given us a vehicle to do it well. I can kind of walk you through what we do. So partitions are dividers for boxes. So we make the internal dunnage. This is a picture of my son and I in front of a 737 in the white, which is actually green, but that's in Everett, Washington in September of 2015. Just really cool moment. This is, one of the things I'd like to, touch on later is make sure you're documenting your progress, because we moved into our new building, which is beautiful, before we started the lean process because we were out of space. But this is one of our older pieces of equipment that doesn't get used much anymore. It's a slitter. It takes big sheets of paper and makes them smaller. Well, the next piece of equipment that we have here, it puts the so it's loud, it's dangerous, and all it does is put slots in paper. So the newer piece of equipment that we got probably 12 years ago, even this is still before Lean, this takes those two processes and does them at one time in a different order. And once the product comes off of there, once it's cut to size and has the number of slots into it, we put it on the automatic assembler. There. So there's hoppers on the back, the parts will drop through, it moves forward, and this puts it together so that it can be collapsed and sent to the customer. So that is what we had pre-lean. As you can see, there's nothing, super glamorous about what we do or interesting. And so what we kept hearing from people is, yeah, this job just isn't for me. I changed the question and said, what about the job isn't good? Because we can't have 360, 370 people a year that aren't good. There's got to be some people in there that want a job, but maybe we have a job that nobody wants. So the next thing we did was we got a CAD table, which allows us to cut those products out with very minimal setup and quite a bit safer. So it's quite a bit slower, but the throughput of this machine matches what you can put together by hand. And so this is what we use for small volume jobs and allows us high level of customization without having to buy tooling. And then I think it's the last video here this is why we built the new building originally. This takes the people out of it and keeps them really safe. So you can see that picks the sheets up and then the die is going back and forth. The part's completely cut. The scrap is gone up the scrap system. There's no cleaning. It's there's no interaction other than feeding sheets in, but it's a very safe machine especially compared to the first one. Those things were only able to be implemented because of the 2-second lean improvements we made along the way. We didn't have the cash flow to buy that or build the building, but we did it anyway on faith. But also, with the help of 2-second lean, it's really helped us cut the turnover, which helped make us more profitable.
So you just touched on that you saw lean at Boeing and you're like, this is way too hard. I can't do this. Mm-hmm. What made you start clicking with 2-second lean that made the difference?
It got away from the technical stuff, all the charts and the graphs and all of that stuff, and it made it about the people. And it wasn't until I didn't fully realize that until I heard Ryan Tierney talk about, it's right on the cover, how to grow people and improve processes. I was just trying to improve processes because the job seemed so difficult. And I realized a lot of the stuff we did was mistakes in assumptions we were making in the office when we quoted jobs. We were doing it on equipment that wasn't easy to work on, and we were asking our people to do a lot. And so by changing the equipment to better suit our customers' needs, we were able to not frustrate our people by what we were asking them to do. And so changing the view of it's not just about improving the processes, but how can I make people's lives better? I also heard in Bob Taylor's book, he talked about, if a robot can do a job, why do you have somebody doing the job? And so I kind of went, man, a lot of this is just big, heavy lifting. Sheets, you think of paper sheets or corrugated or cardboard. It's not very heavy, but you do that all day long with those sheets, or you just put one part into another by hand. It wears you out. So you go home tired, which is why we had 360 people. I was fine doing it, but I'd also spent 10 years doing it at that point.
You said it's all about the people. And then you had a lot of basically villains and broken people, and you had to work with these people. Just tell us a little bit more about that transition. How did you realize now I got to invest into these people, and that made the difference? Like,
we were always trying to do it, but what we realized is it was hard to do with the turnover. We were always putting out fires or trying to train people that we never got to a point without consistent processes that we had a consistent training program. Everybody go, okay, this is how you do it. And then we'd leave and we'd come back and go, okay, you don't get it. And that would lead to frustration. But when you've got a team of 40 at the time trying to train, call it 400 people in a year, you've got at least 1.5 new people you're training every day. And that's if you're working weekends, which we were a lot of times. Now we do 4 10-hour days. So what we've done is by improving the working conditions and the job, with everybody giving us ideas on how to do that, we've been able to build a consistent team of individuals that want to be there and want to be poured into. We used to have a job that anybody could do in our mind. And what we realized, we had created a job that nobody wanted. Anybody could do it, but nobody wanted to. So by asking the question, why, we were able to then create a job so that we could better serve the people we wanted and give them advancement. Does that answer the question?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm just thinking out loud here, but you change the work conditions. How do you change the work conditions when you don't have the money to change the work conditions?
You've got to find the improvements. None of the changes I made there would have been possible without the 2-second improvements. The problem with starting 2-second lean is you're drowning in opportunity and you don't even know you're drowning in it. And so just by having your 3S time and finding the problems, fixing what bugs you every day leads to, okay, I have a little bit more time. I have a little bit more energy. The quality is a little bit better. And as that snowball starts rolling, you get to the point where you're like, oh, there's a little bit extra money over there.
Yeah.
I can now do those things. Or I'm not running in circles all the time. I can now research a different way to do this. One of the improvements my guys came up with today was an Ondon light, and it's three tubes that look like, they're just giant, toilet paper rolls basically, and they got different colors on them. So that just pops up on top of the machine. No money. It was trash and some spray paint. So, fail fast, fail cheap. You can get to the nice stuff like we've done, but it's taken 10 years to get here. We were in not great financial position when we started this. But it wasn't why I started it. I didn't understand our financial position when I started this. I just knew I was working a lot of hours and none of them were fun.
I wanted to add as well something that recently I stopped thinking about let's make an improvement and rather focus on let's make an experiment. Because an experiment doesn't have the connotation of failure, where a lot of people don't want to improve because they're scared it's going to create more damage than that. Whereas if you say, how many experiments have you done today? And that can be like, I've done one or two. Okay, great. Brilliant. We've done 1 or 2 more than we did, like if we didn't do any. So you talked about Kaizen yourself. You Kaizened yourself. What did that look like?
I mean, part of it was just figuring out how to get out of my own way. I, by nature, am a very helpful person, and I want to do what I can to help other people. And because we didn't have a lot of money and my mom owned most of the company at the time, our idea was the leanest thing we could do is think through the experiments and then come up with the one we think is going to work. What we unintentionally did was kill everybody's creativity, and we stayed the improvement person. And what that meant is we cost ourselves some good lean thinkers because we were steamrolling them all the time. Also, we cost ourselves their future improvements and just created more frustration. It took a while to learn because we didn't have the money to run an experiment that may have needed a new tool or some wood, so getting those things is like, well, and we didn't have the time in our schedule because we were working 6 days a week to then go, okay, you can take an hour or 2 and go build that thing with supplies we don't have to figure out what's going to work. Improving myself was going, okay, I can't be the one to do it all. A, I don't have all the skills that they have, but B, I know that I'm not the best to solve their problem, but I need to shut my mouth and let them figure out that that's not the best way to solve their problem.
And when did that come to you, that realization?
This morning? Frequently. I would say the first time I had that was probably when I went to Japan. No, actually, you know what? It probably was when I heard Ryan Tierney's speech about people. And I just went, oh no. Because it was never my intention, but it was one of those wake up calls. It was one of those things that was like, how I've been doing this for how long and I didn't even realize it. Trying to be helpful, I got to stop in my head and go, am I solving their problem for them, or am I letting them experiment?
I'm going to just jump in. Phil, you had a great question there. Do you want to ask Sean your question, because it's pertinent?
Yeah. So how did you learn to shut your mouth, Sean?
I don't know, Phil. That's a great question. I am a personal person. I want to be helpful. and I don't mind talking. It's just a constant reminder of specifically the people that we choose to employ are very broken individuals, and we're trying to help them heal. And me solving their problems for them is not going to help them learn outside of our organization. It's not going to help them grow inside the organization either. So the best thing I can do to serve them is let them learn, even when it's painful.
So it was a conscious thing. You had to become aware of the fact that you were opening your trap and trying to solve their problems, and
Yeah.
then progressively.
Yeah. It's, I don't want to pick on my wife too much, but I would say being married has also taught me not to talk a lot and solve problems, because I learned that that is not what your wife wants, is you to come in and solve her problems. She just wants you to listen to her. And so I think that being married, as long as I have, has helped me learn that.
Sean, onto the topic of consistency. What have you done consistently in the last 10 years that's worked?
Experimented with the morning meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because when I started it, this is another one of my failures. I went in and went, okay, Paul says everybody's got to rotate in the morning meeting. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do the morning meeting right after improvement time, which is first thing in the morning. We're going to do our 3S, and then we're going to do the morning meeting. The problem is as we grew our people, we don't have a consistent start time for everybody, because we have about 25 employees at any given time, and 17 of them, 17 full-time equivalents, because we have people that have state programming. They've got to go to counseling. They've got to go to different appointments and CPOs and stuff like that. So, and we've got to, so with all of those different things people are doing, we've changed. Our improvement time is still first thing in the morning of your shift. So we start at 6 o'clock. Most of the people that are there at 6 o'clock, that's your improvement time. You got a half hour. And then at 9:30, after morning break, most people are there. They've had their cigarettes. They're good to go. They can focus on the morning meeting, and that can go 15 minutes to a half hour, depending on the way the conversations go and the improvement videos and different things. But when I first did it, I said, everybody's going to do it. And so we did it. And I would say more than half my staff quit. Some of them that didn't quit went and got doctor's notes to tell me they had too much anxiety to be able to do the morning meeting, and then they quit. So experimenting with that is, if I had to do it all over again, is I would start with the people who already know you're crazy and are willing to jump on board with you, and then bring the other people along and go, hey, this is what it will be eventually. You will have to get up here and do this. And we're still improving that. One of the things we've improved upon most recently is we had a guy who had been with us for about 2 weeks. He was up in the rotation. We said, it's your turn to do morning meeting. He'd been to 15 of them. So it's 3 weeks. He'd been to 15 meetings, and he goes, I'm not comfortable doing that yet. Okay. Old me would have been like, you've been here 2 weeks. You knew this was coming. There's the door. New me went, why are you nervous? And so the plant manager and I sat down and said, what can we do? What didn't we do well? And now on your onboarding paperwork, you get an SOP on how to present the morning meeting and what to do. That way they've got 2 weeks to prepare for it. The guy still never made it to morning meeting. He had other issues, but it still led us to that improvement. Other people we had that can't read, and so we would stand next to them and coach them through it. We do it together. Now we do it on an iPad, and they have to input the information into it, which has been great because it's taught them how to do it. But one of the guys who hopefully we'll see a video from later, he went into prison in the early 90s. Knowing how to use a computer is not a thing that he was super familiar with. So, that's just another level of coaching, but being consistent in going, oh, this didn't work the way we thought it did. We didn't think of this, and changing it to meet the needs of our employees to help them grow and also disseminate the information that we want to has been super important. But the morning meeting happens every day.
So that's the other thing. So the consistency of the morning meeting every day, and why is that important to you? Why not do it once a month or once a week or once every 2 weeks?
Because you have to show it's important. If you're giving people the time and they think all they have to do is clean in the morning, improvement is pushing a broom, you're missing the opportunity. So you've got to take the morning meeting to train people and teach them what an improvement looks like, why this should be important to them. And it's not about making money. It's about making their lives better. The money will come if you focus on the right things, and the consistency of training your people pays huge dividends.
Abraham, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, hey Sean. Was just wondering around your decision to specifically employ troubled individuals, as you said, which I think is awesome. You know, you're offering a quite literal life-changing second chance. But obviously, a prison or rehab isn't your normal candidate pool when it comes to recruitment. So I was just wondering, what was the decision behind doing that, and how did you get the confidence that that wouldn't jeopardize and burn your own business, you know, with potential bad habits or outbreaks from people that, you know, come from that kind of past?
It was actually the reason my parents bought this business is because they dealt with people who were coming out of incarceration and things like that. That was what drew my parents to buy the business in the first place, is it was an outreach thing. We've all been given a second chance, whether we know it or not. And so this was our ability to give back to the community. What 2 Second Lean did for us was give us a vehicle to pour into those individuals. We all have issues. Most of the people who work for me just come with documentation that I could know what they are, but I don't look at it. It doesn't matter. I mean, I do trust these guys with the business, with lots of money, big equipment, and my children.
And so you haven't had too many cases where, you know, that's been hard to maintain, you know, a good culture, or just because your focus is on, you know, giving people second chances, it's something that you actively work through?
Because of lean, 2 Second Lean specifically, we've stopped a lot of that stuff. We used to have a lot more. As a cult, you know, when you've got 400 people through your building a year, you have no culture. There is no culture. And so as we stem the tide of why people were leaving, we now have a culture that when trouble arises, we know about it before anybody else. There's some stories I can tell you offline of some issues we have had and things that you just kind of shake your head and go, what is this? How is this appropriate? How is this worth it? What is the reward for what you're doing here? But those issues are few and far between. And the only 2 people we've ever called the police on were not from the correctional facility or a rehab. One was an outsider and the other was a temp. It doesn't matter where they're coming from. And, you know, the unfortunate thing is there's a lot of people who are not ready to be done with whatever got them in trouble in the first place. And so we can do our best to help people along the way. It was just a couple weeks ago, we had a great guy who had changed a lot about his life. And he made one mistake. I don't know how frequently he made this one mistake, but he made a mistake and it cost him his job. I'm hoping he can figure it out and he'll come work for me next year. But for the most part, it's not as difficult as we make it out to be before you experience it. I asked one of the individuals we'll see in the video here has been with us since COVID. I think this September, he will be with us 5 years.
2 Second Lean to me means making changes for the better, making your life easier, and changes for the future. Things like when I was at CTC, I had a 2010 Toyota RAV4. Drove that for a year and 4 months. Decided to buy a 2022 Kia Rio. Drove that for another year and 3 months and upgraded to a 2024 Nissan Versa. These are things that I've never thought that I would be able to accomplish within 5 years of being out of prison. Also, I've accomplished buying a house here in Lancaster to make it easier for me to get back and forth to work and building something for my future instead of paying all the rent for just a month of staying. So little things like that makes my life better. I know that my car is dependable. I know I have a place to stay. It's mine as long as I pay for it. But to pay for it, I have to work. Martin's has helped me accomplish all these goals that I've had. So I would like to thank Sean Miller and all of the Miller family, Darren, which is my supervisor, and everyone else that works here at Martin Partitions for supporting me during this time that I've been out. I've really appreciated it. I've needed the help. I've needed the support. They've helped me become the person that I am today. So thank you.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah. He made that video for me yesterday. And I didn't give him much notice. He put it together. And just to to see his excitement. He's gone to what we call our Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. He has gone to those meetings and tried to get other people to come here and use us as an example to other companies that want to come tour us on how to do it well. And we're trying to do better. We're trying to expand it so that we get people from other sources as well, if you will, other backgrounds, so we can come and help get them back into society and take lean there.
So, we're talking about the consistency of morning meetings and 3S. When you get somebody in that's comes from a really bad background into now your culture, and you put that in, how does that help with those routines? How does that help them change? Because obviously it doesn't happen overnight.
The biggest thing is showing them that it doesn't happen all at once. You're not gonna change your behavior. You're not gonna change your life. Nothing's gonna happen overnight. In the States, we have lottery, which you can, buy tickets and win lots of money. It seems most countries have those. And the thing that's crazy is how many of those people are still unhappy after winning silly amounts of money. And so we try to tell people that is you didn't get yourself here overnight. You're not going to get yourself there overnight. You're going to have new challenges and changes every day. But if you consistently figure out what it is, what's your biggest challenge, or what's the easiest one to fix that first and create that momentum. It can't, sometimes it is, this is the biggest challenge. This is the easiest thing, the smallest step I can make to make it not my biggest challenge. And just take it one step at a time. But you have to continually do that stuff, or you will not, you'll end up right back where you were.
Is there anything else you did consistently over the last 10 years?
I do a lot of things wrong.
But that's consistent.
Just consistently running the experiment to see what didn't work. One of the things that I've put myself in the position of is errand boy. If the guys want something to run an experiment that we don't have the supply in the lean cave, there's a hardware store 5 minutes down the road. I will go pick up what they need. I was at the store today just because I've been on vacation. I was getting all the like just water and supplies for the plant. And they texted me and said, "Hey, we got this idea. We found a torque screwdriver. What do you think?" And I said, "It'll be there tomorrow morning between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. Like, it just wasn't a question because I know it's going to make their life better. And it's funny, that specific improvement, I've wondered why they haven't done it for years. But whenever I brought it up to the operators, they're like, "Oh no, this is fine." And I'm like, okay. But it's just, I learned not to push that. Going back to what Phil and I were talking about, just keeping my mouth shut. Sometimes I go, "Are you sure there's not a better way?" To go, "Oh no, this works great." And I'm like, okay, it's not how I would do it. But then again, I'm not doing it 8 hours a day. It's really easy to walk into somebody else's facility and just go, "Man, there's money just laying all over the place." But I know every time somebody of a lean mindset has walked into my facility, they're like, "Why didn't you do that?" That's the first thing I would have done. I'm like, "Oh, that's so easy to do." But you get blinded by it if you always are looking at it with the same eyes. So I try to step back and go, "Okay, what did I miss?" Like I jokingly said, it fail all the time. Getting comfortable with failure has been one of the biggest changes for me. Is and your wording of changing it from improvement to experiment adds up to getting good at failing consistency and not feeling like a failure.
Exactly. And that's just it's a simple word, but language is so powerful, and changing the language can make such a massive impact. James, did you want to ask your question?
Absolutely. So thank you, Sean. I really appreciate you sharing all this with us. It's actually absolutely made my morning. I can't wait to watch the replay and show my friends the replay. My question is, so we spoke about morning meeting, we spoke about 3S time. Do you have any other routines that you would have with your team members, especially when they come in? Because I'd imagine that it would be a bit of whiplash for them, and it's probably the first time in their whole life that they've been listened to and been valued as a human. And they come into your facility and all of a sudden they've got this person saying, "What's your ideas? What do you want to do?" And they'd almost, I can try and put myself in their shoes and imagine they'd feel like they're going to be tricked. So I'm just curious, like, is there any other routines that you would have to sort of help them with that transition into your culture?
No, maybe I should. We just try to listen a lot, and with not training as many people per day as we were, it allows us to be alongside them better and listen to them and kind of just talk to them and figure out what their needs are as an individual. everybody's so unique and diverse that to have a system for that, I found to be difficult because, like I had a gal who refused to do the morning meeting. And I said, no, you have to do it, but you can do this. And so the experiment we ran with her is we said, okay, I'm going to pre-record you doing the morning meeting, and then you can sit and watch yourself. She hated that. So the next time she stood with her back to the room and read off a piece of paper with me standing next to her. And then the next time she stood forward with the piece of paper right in front of her face so nobody could see her. And now it's no problem. And so I guess the consistent thing we do there is try to figure out what we need to tailor to fix that individual's weaknesses to help bolster them into being successful in our culture. The one person that just didn't make it recently, I mean, he was doing improvements at his apartment. He was sharing videos. He was doing all of this stuff. And I think he came in with his hair on fire and none of us knew it and just burnt out. He tried to fix everything all at once and then got overwhelmed. That's my theory. I don't know. And I unfortunately can't ask him. We've got other people who, just kind of, you find out they're good at something and you push them on the stuff they're good at while trying to encourage the other things behind to fill it out. So we start, everybody does the bathroom. We show you how to do that. We show the SOP and then we just train to that. And so I guess it's the consistency on training through the SOPs that helps build some of those things while you're figuring out where you can best serve that individual to help them assimilate better. I've heard frequently, in fact, the guy who did that video, one of his bunkmates still works for us as well. And he goes, I got to tell you, when I started here, I thought this was a cult. I went, yeah? He goes, why? So why is that? He goes, well, you guys follow this guy named Paul Akers and everything he does is awesome. And so, and you get together and you have this morning meeting, which is kind of like a worship ceremony. And I'm like, I guess you're not wrong. Like, but at the same point, he goes, it's improving my life and it's teaching me how to be better. And I'm like, okay, so it's worth it. And he goes, yeah, just don't let me drink the Kool-Aid. So,
but what am I?
That's just, sorry. I guess, just finding what somebody needs to fill the gaps. And when you're not dealing with hundreds of people a year, but maybe 6 new people a year, it makes it easier to do that.
And what my particular takeaway from your answer then too was plenty of time on the Gemba learning who they are as a person. So that was my takeaway from your response as well, is that you can't just treat everyone as a square peg. You need to spend that time with them and just get no, thank you, Sean.
Welcome. I like how you shortened that up. It was way better.
It's all the secret sauce is Gemba time with your people. That's what I'm learning.
Yes, which is hard to do for some people because, like I said, if I'm the errand boy, I'm not at the plant. If I'm on vacation, I'm not at the plant. If I'm out making sales calls, which I'm also in charge of, I'm not at the plant. But we've trained everybody by having a good team that somebody's out there investing in that person. Somebody's out there figuring out what they need and communicating that to the team. It's why you bring improvement ideas to the morning meeting, is because you may not know, here, this is my frustration. How do I fix it? Or what ideas do you have? And by having that Hansei, I think is the sharing. If you have that, then, oh, so-and-so needs this. One of the things that came out of, just being in the break room is one of our individuals asked me how rent to own works. And I said, well, what do you need to buy? And she goes, I need a new dryer. So what happened to your dryer? She goes, it doesn't dry. One of the other guys said, I bet we could fix that. So they took a spare dryer over to her house. I don't know where the spare dryer came from, but they took a spare dryer over to her house, took her dryer home, and within a week had it repaired for her and back. Cost her $50 rather than a rent to own that would have been $50 a week for the next 20 years or whatever those things are. And so, like, being a community of givers, we're figuring out how to not just treat people as pegs that go in holes.
The conversation we had earlier was that, you came from a place where you were so burnt out. You didn't have time, people rotating. And now it's like, it's completely flipped 180.
Yeah.
And do you have to pinch yourself sometimes and think, how did this happen?
Frequently. I mean, just like I kind of alluded to being here, is like, what is my life? I've met a couple of you in real life. in a different country that none of us live in.
Hmm.
I don't have to be at work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Hmm.
Customers aren't calling me complaining. Orders are going out on time. I'm not redoing orders. I'm not having to retrain somebody every day to do the same thing that I trained somebody else to do yesterday because they didn't show up or they left before first break.
Hmm.
The guitar is behind me. I didn't play guitar when I found 2-second lean. I didn't know how, nor did I think I could ever learn. I didn't think I was musical. What I found out is it's a lot of work to be musical.
Hmm.
But you can do it if you want to. And because of the continuous improvement and always showing up and finding a way to add quality into my life, I now have time to do stuff like this, to play, to learn new skills, show interest in things, and just talk to people.
Abraham, did you want to ask? You had another question there?
Yeah, I did. It was just around, with new people joining the team, especially with their background. Obviously, a huge part of Lean is gratitude, being grateful for resources, grateful for opportunity, respecting people. A large amount of it is, changing who you are as a person to truly embody these values. Is there, an actionable step you can think of that really helped you create that paradigm shift in your people, especially potentially, them likely having a negative mindset, a victim mindset, as you'd expect with their background? How do you inspire that? And is there a secret beyond, them being in the place where they want to change? Have you found a way to actually help somebody want to change and create that paradigm shift for them to adopt a lean mindset?
There's no secret sauce, but I did learn years ago that, especially when it comes to their recovery, I can't want it more than they do. All I can do is present the opportunity and the resources that they need to be successful as we understand it. And that is all we can do. I can't be with you 24 hours a day. I can't make sure that you're not making the choices, that you're hanging out with the people you're not supposed to be hanging out with, and all of those things. But what I can do is create a nice, safe environment with with a given culture that you can be in 40 hours a week. One of the things that, Paul talks about in his book is the gratitude. Every day somebody goes up and writes their gratitude and they put it in this bin. I shied away from that for longer than I should have because when you had all these people, you had no culture. And so now in the morning meeting, we set it up where it's just open floor. We just open it up and the presenter says, "This is who I am. What are you grateful for?" And that's how we start every morning meeting. My team changed it on me at some point. I don't know when exactly this changed, but now the presenter asks that question and then follows up with, "This is what I'm grateful for." And it was just a small change, but it has huge payoff because now we get to know that individual a bit more. They're bringing in pictures of their gardens. They're bringing in pictures of their new TV or, like Bernie talked about, I own a house. Like he never thought that was possible. He spent 26 years in prison. Owning his own home was never on the this is going to happen thing. And he goes, "Here I am. It's awesome. I'm building for my future." Not everybody we deal with has a phone. Tom talks about it in his chapter of, making a thank you video and putting it together. I have done that. And what I found out is it's not that effective for my team because most of the people see it in the morning meeting, but they can't share it. But what they will do is when I go up and tell them, I'm like, "Hey, I saw your improvement. That was really good. How's it working out for you?" That's what I'm hearing is making a difference in our people. And so I just had to change it. As much as I have a lot more time than I used to, I still have to figure out how to spend it wisely to engage with the people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Sean. I think
You're welcome.
what I took away from that was focusing on the things you can control. And by the sounds of it, the classic story of focusing on yourself, success is contagious. And if enough people come on board, then they catch the rest. And sharing those stories in the team meeting sound like an important part to, other people learning about what that looks like for that person. But probably just like the gentleman that shared his awesome story about having a house, the next guy that comes out of prison now goes, if he can do it, maybe I can too. There's hope, So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's incredible.
Most companies struggle. They have healthy people, but we all have challenges. We all have broken.
I was going to say, define healthy, Edwin.
Didn't come from prison.
Yeah. As I say, you just haven't been caught doing something you shouldn't have. Or what you're doing is socially acceptable. That's the two things I tell the guys. It's like, yeah, just I didn't get caught doing something I shouldn't have been, or whatever vices I may have are not deemed socially acceptable or unacceptable. I'm sorry. The other video, there's a really good video, and I don't have it, but it's a young Indian kid talking about you become what you practice.
So my question to you today is, what do you practice every day? What do you practice? Because what you practice, you will get good at. What do you practice? Do you practice joy in your life? Do you practice peace in your life? Do you practice happiness in your life? Or do you practice a lot of complaining? Because if you complain, you will get very good at it. And you will get so good at it that you will find fault with everything. Even when there's no fault that a layman cannot see, you, being an expert, will see it. What do you practice? Do you practice anger? Because if you practice anger, you will get very good at it. And you will get so good at it that the most trivial you'll think. Trivial thing will make you angry. Like sitting in an airplane and watching the sea across from you somehow looks better than the one you've been given. And that is so unfair of the airlines. What do you practice? Do you practice being worried? Because if you practice being worried, you will get very good at it. And you will get so good at it that everything will worry you, including the buffalo you don't have. So I propose, if this is true that it's a question of practice, then I propose you practice joy.
And it's been shared around the Lean group a couple of times. It's a fantastic video, and we play it about once a year. And just, it talks about, like, if you're miserable, if you practice being miserable, you will be miserable. So Abraham, kind of like you said, is like, if you surround yourself with happy people, the success pulls you in. But if you surround yourself with the negative people, you too will become negative.
It reminds me of that saying, are you happy because you're smiling, or are you smiling because you're happy? So you can, since I heard that, I was like, I'm always smiling. So you're always, well, most of the time, I'm smiling because when I smile, you look at me, you smile back, and I feel good and you feel good as well, because by smiling, you're releasing, oxytocin and things like that. Oh, you had another question. Did you want to ask?
Love it. There's some lovely things coming through. Getting good at failing consistently. I absolutely love that. But my question for you, Sean, what was the first thing that you changed when you implemented 2-second lean that started making a difference?
It was going into the office and figuring out what we were asking our people to do that we had no business asking them to do. So looking at the jobs we were quoting and accepting and going, why are we doing this? And if we're doing it, are we getting paid enough to not, be down our employees' throat going, this should have been set up an hour ago. Why isn't this set up? Well, it's because it's a giant setup. That first video I showed Edwin showed with the spinning hubs, each one of those hubs has a top and a bottom that has to be set up, and then you got to close the machine, and it's perfect. But we had one job that you only had to kick 150 times. It's like 2 minutes to kick 150 sheets, but the setup on it would take 2 hours. And at the time I showed up at when I came to work for my parents, there was a guy there that did all of our quoting, and he said, you can set up any job in a half hour. So that's how everything was costed. And that's how we ran the business. Once he left, we found out, no, you cannot do anything in a half hour. He was fudging the numbers. We just didn't know what we didn't know, but we were still holding the new guys who didn't have the 20 years of experience that he had to that unreasonable standard. So, because it all starts, in my opinion, from what orders you accept in the business. If you're accepting stuff that you can't do or is unreasonable to ask of your employees, your fault. And so we started with that. And that was one of the biggest changes. And it's one of the things that still, when people go, you can't do lean in an office, or lean in an office is so hard, I just cringe, because they're looking at trying to do the, like, I need to foam my pencils out, and I need to make sure that this stuff is here and all this. And I'm like, no, you need to make sure that like all of your programs are giving you the results you want to be successful. You need to dig into that and ask the reason, like, do the 5 whys on, why is this order so hard to do? Why is it taking my people longer than I thought it was? Why are my tables, of estimation wrong? And once we went through that, it stemmed a lot. We still, the guy we have in the office right now, Kyle, does a great job of looking at it going, this was wrong. How did I miss this? Can it be automated? Can it be programmed to make the decision for me? Or is there a way that it can alert me, I need to make a decision here before I can continue, rather than just leaving it empty or having it on autopilot in the wrong way, if that makes sense.
I want to just touch on quickly about 3S. Like, often people 3S and they just sweep.
Yes.
How did you work with your people to be able to get a little bit more out of than just like sweeping and moving stuff around?
We're still working on that. It's just, I don't know what it is about the broom that is so comfortable that it's like a security blanket. It's just like, this is what I'm going to stick with, and this is what I'm going to do. And I think it's just something about sweeping that you can see the before and after right away, and there's no chance of failing. It's either clean or it's not. And so as we've grown people into seeing those ideas and things like that, it's been better, because just trying to teach people that you're pushing this broom to look for potential problems. You're looking for it to look for experiments to run. What can you do there to look for it? And it just takes time. And I don't think this is an excuse, and it may be, but because our people are so broken, and because they're so afraid of failing, they don't want to get fired. And so making sure that it's a secure enough environment, but giving them the time to do it, and then asking them what they found every day has helped. But most of the improvements I'm getting are throughout the day.
Yeah. So
it's not necessarily during the prescribed time, if you will, but still building it into the culture. They're like, if you found a better way, let's do it right now. Stop the line. Let's do it. So I know that's not the book answer of it, but that's the real world that we've run into.
I find that a lot of people understand 3S, so they conceptually get the knowledge, but they don't understand how to transfer that to actual action. And for me, that's a connection that there's missing training. The other week, I was down in Adelaide working with a team there, and they've been doing, they're still early on their journey, almost a year. But when I was out there with them 3Sing as a group, I was showing them how to do it. They started making connections that they didn't understand before. And that's because I was on the Gemba with them, training, asking questions the whole time. We go, here, what's this item doing here? Why is it here? Can we move it somewhere else? Is this the best place? You're doing it and you're asking questions the whole time. But the training comes when you, who has a bit more knowledge, or one of your leaders works with somebody who doesn't have that skill set yet, and to work closely with them during that time. And I don't think there's not enough videos about that. There's not enough videos about, you just see the before, this is the struggle, and this is the after, but you don't see the in-between, what happened, and somebody training you to do that. It's like when you first learning to drive your car, you don't just get in you can read a book and say, oh, cool, I can drive a car, but there's normally somebody sitting next to you saying, put the clutch in, okay, accelerate it out, okay, this is what it feels like. You can read it, but you don't really know how to do it if you have somebody's support. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and one of the things I've fought with myself over is not stepping on toes, but also coming alongside and just asking that question of like, well, why is that over there? Why do you have to go look for that? And doing some of those things. We had a longer morning meeting this morning because it was tape. They were taping things. And I said, well, why are you taping things? Well, this didn't hold over here. I said, well, what about those 3D, just asking the questions. And we got to the point that, if we change this design, we probably won't need tape here anymore. Once again, not trying to make excuses, just thinking through this is a lot of our problems, because everything we do is custom. You might have a job specific problem that's not going to be top of mind during 3S time. So a lot of the stuff is not like the tools already have homes. It's not that waste. It's the waste of, readjust, like doing the final adjustments on that job and getting that up quickly.
Phil, what's your opinion on that? Like, how are you training your people with 3S?
What I try and do is try and tie everything back to a lean concept. So, if someone's showing their improvement, the before and then the after, tie that back to, well, what have they eliminated? They've eliminated some transportation, or they fixed what they bugged them, or, it might be a core value. This is pride, or I've used integrity. So you're training the action that they've done, and how does that apply? Because I've got people who can recite, the 8 wastes, who can recite all the things, and, better than I can. But then they'll walk out of that, and then they'll go in and they just don't see all of the wastes. And then, unless you're asking them, so it's a matter of just sort of trying to, hey, we had this quality defect. That was because of our waste of poor planning. We need to be better at planning.
That is one of the things we changed in our morning meeting. Was it used to be just reciting the 8 wastes, and now we talk about our defects or our errors, and we say, what was the result of these? And they go through and have to identify it. And then we go, okay, what are you going to do differently? Or what are we going to do to prevent that in the future?
Another great example that I saw with 3S was taking, like, once a month, take a group of people that work in a specific area, put them all together, and you get somebody to lead them and say, okay, let's 3S this area, but we're going to do this together. And then you start just ask questions. And then what we realized last week is there was this equipment there, and we were 3Sing with a whole group of people, and we're like, I'm cleaning this area, and they're like, and I was asking a lot of questions, and eventually came to that nobody used this equipment. That's why it was so dirty, and that they could remove it and actually put something else there, but without bringing everybody there and having that, like, do we actually use this? Like that, it would have sit there for another couple of years, and so until somebody asked the question. Okay, well, we're over the hour, so I appreciate your time, Sean, and thanks for sharing your journey and your wisdom, and look forward to catching up in Argentina.
Yeah, it'd be great. It's great to see you guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for the invite. Paul quotes Mark Twain: "Travel is the antidote for racism," and one of the things, the more people I connect with from around the world, the more I realize we're just the same. You may know we had a very heated election here for the presidential seats. And some people are very happy about who our president is, and some people are not. Which is the same thing that happened during the last election and the last election and the last election. Anyway, we've been going for a while. And what I told people is I said, work on your sphere of influence. All we can do is be kind to one another here. I can't change your mind, just like I can't want your sobriety more than you do. And so it's that, just kind of showing up and just going, where you come, seeing the person to try to help make them more complete, I guess, is that's probably the best way to answer that question earlier, is like, how do you assimilate people into your organization? Is you've got to see them as an individual and see where they are going to struggle in your organization.
I don't know if you've ever read any of Brené Brown's books. She's a shame researcher.
Okay.
She's got a TED talk, and she talks about wholehearted. And as younger selves, we get hurt and damaged, and so we close these shutters to protect ourselves, put this armor up. But as life goes on, this armor actually hinders us and does more damage than good. So we have to learn to open them up so that we can heal, become wholehearted. So I
Yeah.
love that. I love that analogy.
It's a consistency of the morning meeting builds your company's tribe, your culture. And we did the morning meeting for a while and didn't have a culture because we had so much turnover. Once we stopped that, the morning meeting really became, like, kind of fell into its own, and we built a culture. We didn't even talk about the fact that, like, we now work on employees' cars.
Yeah.
At work. That's
Yeah,
like
really.
a benefit. Yeah. Well, because most of our people can't afford to get a brake job done at I think it's $1,000 USD to get a brake job done in your car.
Yeah, right.
It's $250 in parts. Well, we have a guy who is a bit rough around the edges.
Yeah.
But he used to work at a junkyard. He knows his way around cars. And so as a service for our employees who cannot afford the repairs, is if they buy the parts, we'll allow Russ to do it during work time, and I'll pay Russ to do the repairs.
Yeah.
Because now you're out $250. You're not out a full day of work because you're still there providing for the customer. And you're saving yourself $700. So you're not losing a day of work, and you're saving yourself a couple days of labor because I'm paying it to Russ. And so by doing that, that has been one of those surprising things that we did, that people aren't missing as many days of work because their cars are getting fixed. They're not, I don't know this is going to be one of those weird sentences. I don't remember the last time an employee put a car in a ditch. It used to happen a lot. I know. Like,
a weird sentence.
Yeah, it is a weird sentence. A guy hit a deer 2 days in a row. No, 2 days in 1 week, like a month ago. He hit a deer, no big deal. Hit a deer the next day, and it completely trashed his hood. And I'm like, was it on the same road? Like, what were you? I've never hit a deer. How did you do that? He goes, my luck, man, my luck. But we don't have people calling off because of car trouble anymore, because we fixed the root cause. The root cause is people buy cheap cars that they can't afford, but they can't afford to maintain.
Yeah.
We can help you maintain them because we've got the knowledge and the resources to do it, which allows you to not go further in debt, and you could continue to better your life.